The Lemnorian Emperor openly mocked the tiny human army until he saw their massive warships exiting hyperspace above his homeworld. Captain Christian Scott, flanked by his elite Special Forces team, crept towards the heavily guarded Lemnorian research facility on planet Lemnos. They needed the intelligence inside to ensure humanity's survival. Without it, the Lemnorians would crush Earth's meager fleet and enslave the human race. Christian, a battle-hardened 28-year-old, knew the stakes as he sliced through the outer perimeter fencing with his combat knife. His 4 squad mates, Lieutenant Novak, Sergeant Johnson, Corporal Smith and Private Wilson, fanned out behind him, night vision goggles scanning for threats. The Terran-Lemnorian diplomatic relationship had started peacefully after first contact between an exploration ship and an alien freighter. But things turned hostile when Emperor Taurus ridiculed humanity's pathetic military on an open broadcast throughout the sector. Earth's leaders needed hard data on the Lemnorians' capabilities to prepare a defense. The black-clad squad sprinted between buildings, avoiding searchlights sweeping the compound. Christian held up a fist, halting his team at the target building's reinforced door. He pulled out his breaching charges, knowing that inside lay the key to protecting humanity from these arrogant aliens. Failure meant the loss of millions of human lives when the Lemnorian warships arrived at Earth. Christian's jaw clenched as he armed the explosive. "Time to show these bastards what humans are made of," he growled. "Stack up. Breach in 3, 2, 1. Boom! The explosive breaching charge detonated, ripping the reinforced door off its hinges. The black-clad squad rushed into the facility, weapons scanning for hostiles. The corridors were dimly lit, emergency lighting flickering as the team pushed deeper into the complex. Christian took point, using hand signals to direct Novak and Johnson down a side passage. Smith and Wilson fell in behind their captain, watching the rear. The team crept through the maze-like hallways, relying on their advanced tactical gear to evade the Lemnorian patrols. Motion trackers and heartbeat sensors let them skirt around the oblivious guards. After a tense 10 minutes of careful navigation, they arrived at a heavy blast door. "Novak, get this open," Christian whispered. The tech specialist pulled out a cutting-edge decryption device, courtesy of Earth's brightest minds. He attached it to the door's control panel and furiously typed on the small keyboard. With a hiss of hydraulics, the door slid open, revealing the central control room. Banks of computers and holographic displays dominated the space. Christian and his team quickly secured the room. Then Novak jacked into the mainframe. "Downloading their database now, sir. Fleet composition, technology specs, everything we need," he reported, fingers flying across the alien keyboard. Terabytes of invaluable intelligence flowed into their data drives. The secrets to defeating the Lemnorian war machine were finally within humanity's grasp. Suddenly a klaxon blared, red lights strobing in the control room. The entire facility had been alerted to their presence. "Shit, they made us! We're going to be swarmed by those overgrown lizards any second," Johnson said, gripping his rifle. Christian accessed the facility's layout on the central display. "Here's the plan. We split up. Novak, Smith with me. We'll head to the hangar and get ourselves a ride off this rock. Johnson, Wilson, rig the power plant to blow. We'll rendezvous at the extraction point in 1 hour." The team split, racing down opposite corridors as the first Lemnorian guards arrived on the scene. Christian gunned down 2 with precise shots, their exoskeletons crumpling as the plasma rounds found gaps in the armor. Novak and Smith laid down covering fire, blasting away a cluster of guards attempting to flank them. Wave after wave of Lemnorians poured into the facility, plasma rifles blazing. The humans fell back towards the hangar, fighting for every inch. Christian couldn't help but marvel at the enemy's advanced weaponry and armor, even as he struggled to overcome them. The intelligence Novak had stolen would be critical in giving Earth a fighting chance. Forcing their way into the hangar with guns and grenades, Christian spied a Lemnorian fighter sitting in a launch cradle. "There's our ticket out!" He sprinted up the boarding ramp, his squad mates close on his heels. The cockpit was a foreign array of complex controls, but years of training and raw skill had Christian airborne in moments. Blasting out of the hangar, Christian pushed the alien craft to its limits. He swooped low over the facility, raking the Lemnorian defenses with the fighter's plasma cannons. Explosions blossomed across the compound as Johnson and Wilson's sabotage tore through the power system. "Christian, we've got their transport. Get to the rendezvous point." Wilson's voice crackled over the radio. The alien facility disappeared in a massive fireball as Christian wrenched the fighter into a steep climb. He grinned savagely as he pushed the craft to the limits of its inertial dampeners. Earth would have a chance now. The Lemnorians' technological edge had been stolen right out from under them by a small squad of determined humans. Christian angled the fighter towards the distant extraction point, where a cloaked human stealth ship waited to take them home. As Christian's stolen Lemnorian fighter touched down in the high-security hangar deep beneath the Pentagon, he felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. The adrenaline of the daring raid was fading, replaced by the weight of the intelligence they had acquired. He glanced over at Novak and Smith, seeing the same weariness etched on their faces. But there was pride, too, in knowing they had struck a blow against the arrogant Lemnorians. The team was ushered into a secure briefing room, where General Marcus Thompson awaited them. The head of Earth's Strategic Defense Council was a grizzled veteran, his face lined with the burdens of command. He nodded approvingly as Christian handed over the data drives. "Damn fine work, Captain Scott. This intel will give us a fighting chance," Thompson said, plugging the drives into his console. Holographic displays sprang to life, showing schematics of Lemnorian warships and troop numbers. The room fell silent as the scale of the alien threat became clear. "Jesus, and their fleet is massive. We're outgunned and outclassed in every way," Novak muttered, staring at the projections. Christian stepped forward, studying the data intently. "Maybe not. Look here. Their ships all rely on this weird crystal for power. Some kind of rare mineral only found on a handful of planets." Thompson zoomed in on the relevant section. "Xenogeologists have theorized about materials like this, but we've never found any. If we could locate and destroy these crystal supply lines, we could cripple their whole damn armada," Christian finished, a plan already forming in his mind. "General, I recommend an immediate strike on these targets. Give me a team and I'll take out those crystal depots myself." Thompson leaned back, considering. After a long moment, he nodded. "All right, Scott, you've got the green light. I'm authorizing Operation Prometheus. Pick your specialists and report to Hangar Bay 7 for mission prep." As the team filed out, Christian's thoughts raced. He knew he needed the best for this mission. Dr. Elena Ivanova was a brilliant xenogeologist. Her expertise would be vital in locating the crystal deposits, and no one could fly a ship through hell like Captain David Nakamura. Lost in thought, Christian almost didn't notice the tall figure waiting for him in the corridor. He snapped to attention as he recognized the weathered face and Admiral's stars. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Admiral Robert Scott, legend of the Space Fleet and Christian's estranged father, stepped forward. "I hear you're about to lead the most important mission in human history," he said gruffly. Christian nodded warily, unsure what to expect. Their relationship had been strained since he joined the military against his father's wishes. The Admiral sighed. "Christian, there's something you need to know. Earth has been holding back its true strength. We have a fleet of advanced stealth warships armed with weaponry reverse-engineered from the Lemnorians themselves. I want you to take them on your mission." Christian gaped at his father, stunned by this revelation. "Sir, why didn't you tell me? This changes everything." Christian straightened, meeting his father's gaze. In that moment he felt the full burden of his responsibilities settle upon him. The lives of billions, the future of humanity itself, all depended on the success of his mission. Failure was not an option. "I'm ready, sir. I won't let you or Earth down. The Lemnorians are about to learn what humans are truly capable of." The Admiral clasped Christian's shoulder, pride gleaming in his eyes. "Then go, Captain. Assemble your team and show those alien bastards what happens when they threaten our home." As Christian marched towards Hangar Bay 7, He knew that the road ahead would be the greatest challenge he had ever faced, but with his father's trust, his team's skills, and the might of Earth's secret fleet behind him, he would lead humanity to victory, no matter the cost. Christian strode through the gleaming corridors of the Terran stealth ship Shadowblade, his footfalls echoing in the hushed atmosphere. The vessel was a marvel of human ingenuity, its angular black hull designed to slip undetected through the void. He entered the bridge where his hand-picked team awaited him. Dr. Elena Ivanova looked up from her console, her green eyes sharp with intelligence. "I've been analyzing the data from our probes. The Lemnorians have a major crystal mining operation in the Orion asteroid belt. It's heavily fortified." Captain David Nakamura nodded, his fingers dancing across the helm controls. "Getting close won't be easy. They've got a force field protecting the whole thing." Christian leaned over the holographic display, studying the complex network of mining facilities and defense platforms. "We need those crystals. Dr. Ivanova, any ideas?" The xenogeologist zoomed in on the asteroid belt's core. "If we plant seismic charges at these key points, we could destabilize the entire structure. The chain reaction should bypass their force field and take out the mines." "Risky, but it could work," Christian mused. "I'll lead the EVA team to plant the charges. Nakamura, keep the Shadowblade out of detection range. We'll need a quick extraction once the fireworks start." The team sprang into action, preparing for the daring assault. Christian suited up in his EVA gear, checking his plasma rifle and demolition charges. In the airlock, he paused to gaze out at the looming asteroid belt, the Lemnorian force field shimmering like an iridescent bubble. "All right, people, let's do this. For Earth," he said over the comm, then launched himself into the void. The EVA team darted silently through the asteroid field, using the tumbling rocks for cover. As they neared the Lemnorian mining facility, a swarm of defense drones whirred to life, plasma cannons glowing ominously. Christian whipped up his rifle and fired, the superheated bolt slagging the lead drone. His team fanned out, engaging the robotic sentinels in a fierce firefight. Explosions bloomed soundlessly in the vacuum as they wove through the crossfire. Reaching the core of the asteroid belt, they split up to plant Dr. Ivanova's seismic charges. Christian anchored himself to a pitted rock, arming the demolition device. Sweat beaded in his helmet as he worked, painfully aware of the seconds ticking down. A plasma bolt sizzled past his faceplate, nearly taking his head off. He spun to see a Lemnorian mech bearing down on him, its crystalline armor gleaming. Cursing, Christian emptied his rifle's power cell into the mech's optics, blinding it. He launched himself at the floundering machine, slamming a grenade into its shattered eye socket. The mech exploded silently, peppering Christian with shrapnel. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he finished arming the charge and signaled his team. "Charges set. Get clear, now." They regrouped at the extraction point, tumbling into the Shadowblade's airlock. Christian ripped off his helmet, bleeding from a dozen cuts. "Blow the charges!" Dr. Ivanova tapped a command into her wrist computer. On the view screen, the asteroid belt buckled and heaved as the seismic charges detonated, ripping through the core. The force field flickered and died, leaving the mining facilities exposed. Secondary explosions tore through the crystallized asteroids, shattering the Lemnorians' operation into glittering dust. "Target destroyed," Nakamura reported, grim satisfaction in his voice. Christian sagged against the bulkhead, allowing himself a moment of victory. They had struck a blow against the Lemnorian war machine, but he knew this was only the beginning. On the bridge, an alert flashed on the communications console, an encrypted transmission from an unknown source. Christian frowned as he activated the message. "Captain Scott, you don't know me, but I have information vital to your mission and to the survival of Earth itself. The Lemnorians' plans for your world are far more sinister than you realize. Meet me at these coordinates and come alone. Trust no one. The fate of your species hangs in the balance." The message cut off, leaving Christian standing in stunned silence. He glanced at the coordinates, his mind racing. Could this be a trap, or a genuine ally with crucial intel? He squared his shoulders, decision made. Nakamura, set course for the galactic core. We're taking out that refueling station. He would deal with this mysterious message and its sender. But first he had a mission to complete. The Lemnorian fleet would regroup quickly after the loss of their mining operation. If humanity was to have any chance, that fuel depot had to be destroyed. As the Shadow Blade leapt into warp, Christian stared out at the blurring stars, wondering what other secrets the galaxy held. The war was only beginning, and he would need every scrap of knowledge and skill to keep Earth safe. No matter the challenges ahead, he would not fail. The future of his world, of all humanity, depended on him. Christian stepped onto the dimly lit deck of Sigma Station, a remote outpost at the edge of human space. The air was thick with the hum of outdated life support systems and the acrid tang of recycled oxygen. He scanned the dingy corridor, hand resting on the grip of his plasma pistol. The coordinates Zaxxon provided led Christian to a seedy tavern tucked away in the station's underbelly. He slipped inside, the pounding beat of alien music assaulting his ears. Neon lights flickered over a motley assortment of humans and aliens, all looking to drown their sorrows at the edge of the galaxy. In a shadowed booth, Christian spotted a hooded figure. As he approached, the figure raised its head, revealing reptilian features. "Captain Scott, I presume," Zaxxon hissed. Zaxxon leaned forward, yellow eyes glinting. "Emperor Taurus is building a superweapon, one capable of shattering planets. He's using the crystals your team failed to destroy." A chill ran down Christian's spine. "Why should I believe you?" The Lemnorian produced a data chip. "See for yourself. Schematics, test fire data, everything you need to know, but you must hurry. The weapon nears completion." Christian plugged the chip into his wrist computer, watching in growing horror as the data scrolled past. If this was true... As if on cue, his comm crackled. "Scott, we've got trouble," Nakamura said, voice tense. "A Lemnorian cruiser just dropped out of warp. They're tailing us." Christian cursed. "Zaxxon, if you're lying—" But the Lemnorian was gone, vanished into the crowd. Christian activated his comm. "Nakamura, lose that tail. I'm on my way back." He uploaded Zaxxon's data to the Shadowblade's secure server. "Ivanova, I need you to verify this intel fast. If it's legit—" "Understood," Ivanova replied, her voice tight with concern. "I'll run the analysis and report back." Christian emerged onto the landing deck, thoughts racing. If the Lemnorians completed this weapon, nowhere in the galaxy would be safe, Earth least of all. Aboard the Shadowblade, Christian pored over the data with his team. "It all checks out," Ivanova said grimly. "The weapon is real, and if Zaxxon's coordinates are accurate, we don't have much time." Christian made the call. "We split up. Ivanova, take a team to the research base. Find that weapon and destroy it, along with any data on how to build another. Nakamura and I will hit the refueling station as planned. If we can cripple their fleet, it'll buy us some time." Ivanova nodded. Determination etched on her face. "Understood, Captain. We won't fail." As the teams prepped for their missions, Christian couldn't shake the sense of unease crawling up his spine. Something felt off about the Lemnorian cruiser shadowing them. He shook it off. They had a job to do. Failure meant the end of everything they held dear. The Shadowblade dropped out of warp at the edge of the Cygnus system, the massive Lemnorian refueling station looming before them. "Stealth systems engaged," Nakamura reported. "They shouldn't pick us up until we're right on top of them." "Good," Christian said, suiting up. "Let's make this quick and clean. We hit the reactor, then we—" Alarms blared through the ship. "Multiple contacts," Nakamura shouted. "Lemnorian fighters coming in hot!" Christian swore. On the viewscreen, a swarm of alien craft poured from the station, plasma cannons blazing, and at their head, a menacing dreadnought. "Zorgax!" he growled. The ambush had been perfectly timed. The Lemnorians had known exactly where to wait. But how? Questions later. "Battle stations!" Christian barked, sprinting for the hangar. They were badly outnumbered, but surprise was still on their side, and he had a few tricks up his sleeve. Leaping into his scimitar fighter, Christian punched the ignition. The sleek craft roared to life, advanced human tech humming around him. "All fighters, launch!" The human ships screamed into the void, plasma lancing from their cannons. They wove through the Lemnorian formation, pitting human skill and ingenuity against alien tech. Within human reflexes, he jinked and juked, evading the dreadnought's fire. Locking on to its primary batteries, he unleashed a volley of quantum torpedoes. The warhead slammed into the Lemnorian ship, explosions rippling along its hull. Zorgax's guns fell silent, buying the humans precious minutes. Christian looped around, zeroing in on the refueling station's reactor. "All ships, clear the blast radius." He armed his last torpedo, fingers flying over the controls. The reactor filled his targeting reticle, a massive sphere of roiling plasma. With the breath of a prayer, he fired. Then the station exploded, a miniature sun blooming in the darkness. The shockwave caught the Lemnorian fleet, tossing them like toys. Christian whooped in triumph. But his elation died as Ivanova's voice crackled over the comm, laced with static and fear. "Scott, the weapon, it's not what we thought there." The signal went dead. Ice flooded Christian's veins. He had a terrible feeling that this was only the beginning of something much, much worse. Christian's heart pounded as he raced through the corridors of the secret Lemnorian research facility, his team close on his heels. The distress call from Dr. Ivanova had been abrupt, laced with urgency and fear. As they neared the central lab, the sounds of chaos grew louder. Shouts, explosions, the hiss of plasma weapons. They burst into the lab to find a scene of utter pandemonium. Lemnorian scientists and guards scrambled to evacuate, alarms blaring. In the center of the room, a towering monstrosity of gleaming metal and pulsing energy dominated the space. The superweapon. Dr. Ivanova rushed over to Christian, her face pale. "Captain, it's worse than we thought. This thing is not just a planet killer. It can create wormholes, instantly transport the Lemnorian fleet anywhere in the galaxy." Christian's blood ran cold. With that kind of technology, the Lemnorians would be unstoppable. Earth wouldn't stand a chance. He gripped his plasma rifle, scanning the room. They had to destroy this abomination now. "Ivanova, how do we take it down?" She pointed to the weapon's glowing core. "If we overload the power core, the feedback should trigger a chain reaction, destroy the whole facility." Christian nodded grimly. "Then that's what we'll do. Nakamura, Johnson, cover us. Ivanova, with me." They charged towards the superweapon, dodging plasma bolts and falling debris. Christian primed a high-yield plasma grenade, ready to hurl it into the core. A Lemnorian scientist stepped out from behind a console, hands raised. Christian trained his rifle on the alien, finger on the trigger. "I am Dr. Zarthul," the Lemnorian said quickly. "I sent you the message posing as Zaxxon. Please, there's another way." Christian's aim didn't waver. "Talk fast." Zarthul edged closer. "Many of us scientists oppose Taurus's warmongering. This technology, it could be used for peace, to bring the galaxy together." The Lemnorian gestured to the superweapon. "Help us overthrow Taurus. With your support, we could establish a new government, one dedicated to cooperation, not conquest." Christian hesitated, torn. Destroy the weapon or take a chance on peace? The fate of Earth, of the whole damn galaxy, hung in the balance. Suddenly the facility shook with a massive impact. Alarms screamed with renewed intensity. On a view screen, a fleet of Lemnorian warships dropped out of warp, weapons hot, and at their head the gargantuan flagship of Emperor Taurus himself. Christian locked eyes with Zarthul, seeing the desperation, the hope, the fear. The weight of the moment crashed down on him. He had to make a choice, right here, right now. The fate of billions rested on his next move. There was no turning back. His jaw clenched as he raised his rifle, aiming it squarely at the pulsing heart of the superweapon. Time seemed to slow, the chaos fading away, until all that remained was the choice before him. Destroy the weapon, or risk it all for a chance at peace? The future of the galaxy would be defined by his actions in the next seconds. Christian's finger tightened on the trigger, the weight of destiny bearing down like a supernova. He drew in a breath, knowing that whatever came next, there would be no going back. Christian locked eyes with Dr. Zarthul, the weight of the galaxy bearing down on his shoulders. In that moment, he made his choice. "All right, Doctor, we'll do it your way," he said, lowering his rifle. "What's the plan?" Dr. Zarthul rushed to a control panel, his clawed fingers flying over the alien interface. "We can use the wormhole generator to transport Taurus's fleet into the Andromeda Void, a desolate region of space light-years from here. They'll be stranded with no way back." Christian nodded, already formulating a battle strategy. "My team will buy you the time you need. Johnson, Ivanova, take up defensive positions. Nakamura, get on the comms and call in the cavalry." As Dr. Zarthul worked frantically to reconfigure the superweapon, Christian and his squad took up positions around the control room. The sounds of battle grew closer, the thudding of heavy boots and the sizzle of plasma rifles. The doors burst open, revealing a squad of heavily armed Lemnorian elite guards. Christian opened fire, his rifle spitting plasma bolts into the enemy ranks. Johnson and Ivanova joined the fray, their weapons adding to the cacophony of battle. The Lemnorians pushed forward, their exo-armor absorbing the humans' fire. Christian ducked behind a console as a barrage of plasma scorched the air above his head. "Zarthul, how much longer?" he shouted over the din. "Almost there," the scientist replied, his voice strained. "Just a few more minutes." Christian gritted his teeth, popping up to take down a Lemnorian guard with a well-placed shot to the head. But for every enemy they felled, 2 more seemed to take their place. They were being overwhelmed. Through the viewport, Christian could see the human stealth ships dropping out of warp, their sleek black hulls contrasting against the violet nebula. They opened fire immediately, catching the Lemnorian warships off guard. The ground shook as the battle raged above and below. Christian and his team fought like possessed warriors, holding the line against the relentless Lemnorian assault. Plasma bolts flew thick and fast, scorching the walls and filling the air with the acrid scent of ozone. "It's ready," Dr. Zarthul cried, slamming his palm down on the activation button. A deep, bone-rattling hum filled the facility as the wormhole generator powered up. On the view screen, a massive rift tore open in space, its edges shimmering with an otherworldly light. The Lemnorian ships, caught in the wormhole's gravitational pull, began to drift towards the rift. One by one they vanished into the swirling vortex, drawn into the inky blackness of the Andromeda Void. Emperor Taurus's flagship, a behemoth of gleaming metal and pulsing energy, strained against the inexorable pull, but even its mighty engines could not resist the power of the wormhole. Just as the flagship began to slip into the rift, the doors to the control room exploded inward. Emperor Taurus himself strode through the smoke, his eyes blazing with fury. "You dare betray me, Zarthul," he roared, drawing a crackling energy blade. "I'll gut you myself." Christian leapt forward, placing himself between the Emperor and the scientist. "You'll have to go through me first," he growled, raising his rifle. The 2 leaders clashed in a whirlwind of plasma and steel, their weapons flashing in the flickering emergency lights. Christian fought with the strength of desperation, knowing that the fate of Earth, of the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. Taurus was a formidable opponent, his exoskeleton granting him inhuman strength and speed. But Christian had something the Emperor lacked, the indomitable human spirit. With a final mighty effort, Christian battered aside Taurus's blade and slammed the butt of his rifle into the Lemnorian's skull. The Emperor crumpled, his crown clattering to the deck. Christian stood over his vanquished foe, chest heaving with exertion. He looked up to see the last of the Lemnorian ships vanish into the wormhole, which snapped shut with a thunderous boom. It was over. They had won. Dr. Zarthul approached, placing a clawed hand on Christian's shoulder. "Thank you, Captain. You've saved not just your world, but all worlds." Christian nodded wearily, the weight of the moment settling upon him. He knew that this victory, though monumental, was just the beginning. As he and his team prepared to return to Earth, to face the cheering crowds and the grateful leaders, Christian couldn't shake the feeling that their struggle was far from over. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity, of their courage and their indomitable will, and as the stars watched and whispered of the deeds done this day, Christian knew that the true challenge was yet to come. In the weeks following the defeat of the Lemnorians, a series of ceremonies honored the heroes who had saved Earth from conquest. Major Christian Scott stood tall as the president pinned the medal to his chest, promoting him to lead the newly formed Interstellar Defense Force. "The IDF will be humanity's shield against the dangers of the galaxy," the president declared, "and there is no one more qualified to command it than the man who led us to victory against Emperor Taurus." As Christian took the podium, he looked out over the sea of faces, his team, his family, the leaders of a grateful world. "This is not an ending, but a beginning," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "We have shown that humanity will not cower in the face of aggression, but we must remain vigilant, for there are always new threats lurking in the stars." Those words proved prophetic mere months later, as disturbing reports reached IDF headquarters. Human colonies on the Outer Rim were under attack, their distress calls cut short by an unknown enemy. The evidence was fragmentary, but it all pointed to a new alien species, the Zorgons. Christian gathered his team, now the core of IDF's Rapid Response Unit. "We need answers," he told them, "but we also need to extend the hand of diplomacy. We cannot afford another war." The journey to the Zorgon homeworld was tense, the team preparing for anything. They reviewed the scant data on Zorgon culture, gleaned from long-range observations. A warrior race, with a rigid code of honor and a disdain for weakness. As their ship entered orbit, Christian couldn't shake a feeling of unease. The Zorgon capital sprawled below, all jagged metal and pulsing crimson light. Their hail went unanswered as they descended to the designated landing pad. The moment they emerged from the ship, all hell broke loose. Plasma bolts rained down on the pad as dozens of Zorgon warriors burst from cover, their snarling faces hidden behind spiked helms. At their head strode a hulking figure wielding a crackling energy glaive. "I am Kralzak," he bellowed, "and you humans have trespassed on Zorgon soil. Now you will pay the price." Christian barely had time to bark orders before the warriors were upon them. He drew his plasma pistol and fired, his team spreading out to find cover. The air sizzled with deadly energy as the two sides clashed. It was immediately clear that the Zorgons were a formidable foe. Their armor shrugged off plasma bolts, their weapons carved molten scars into the landing pad. Christian and his team fought with grim determination, their advanced training and technology the only thing keeping them alive. Kralzak was a whirlwind of destruction, his glaive cutting down IDF troopers with every swing. Christian saw his opening and lunged, his power blade clashing against the warlord's weapon. They traded blows, sparks flying as they danced a lethal waltz. Around them the battle raged. Dr. Ivanova unleashed a swarm of combat drones, the tiny machines weaving through the Zorgon ranks, finding gaps in their armor. Captain Nakamura led a daring flank attack, his team's precision fire felling warrior after warrior. But for every Zorgon that fell, two more seemed to take their place. Christian gritted his teeth as Kralzak pressed the attack, the warlord's strength seemingly inexhaustible. They were being overwhelmed. Suddenly a plasma grenade detonated mere feet from the dueling leaders. The shockwave sent them flying, their weapons clattering to the ground. Christian shook his head to clear the ringing in his ears, then scrambled for his blade. But Kralzak was faster. The warlord snatched up his glaive and lunged, the crackling energy tip aimed at Christian's heart. Time seemed to slow as Christian watched death approach. At the last second he twisted aside, the glaive missing by a hair's breadth. In the same motion he brought his power blade up in a vicious arc. The keen edge sliced through Kralzak's armor like paper, biting deep into the warlord's flesh. Kralzak staggered back, dark blood seeping from the wound. He stared at Christian in shock, then something like respect flickered in his eyes. "Well fought, human," he growled. "You have earned a warrior's death." But before he could strike again, a booming voice cut through the chaos. "Hold!" The Zorgon warriors froze, then parted to reveal a towering figure in ornate armor. "I am Zorkul, High Warlord of the Zorgon Imperium," he declared, "and I declare this trial by combat complete. The human has proven his worth." Christian kept his blade ready, his team forming up around him. "We came in peace," he said, his voice raw from exertion, "to seek answers about the attacks on our colonies." Zorkul nodded. "A rogue faction seeking to provoke war, they will be dealt with." His gaze shifted to Kralzak. "As for you, Kralzak, you have shamed yourself this day. The human defeated you honorably. Accept it, or face me in the circle of blades." Kralzak bowed his head, fist clenched over his bloody wound. "I submit to the warlord's judgment." And just like that it was over. The Zorgon warriors withdrew, leaving the battered IDF team standing amidst the smoking ruins of the landing pad. In the days that followed, Christian and Zorkul negotiated an uneasy truce. The attacks on the colonies would cease, and diplomatic channels would be opened between their peoples. But as Christian and his team boarded their ship to return home, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, and humanity had just taken its first steps into a much larger world. The challenges ahead would test them to their limits and beyond. But with leaders like Christian Scott at the helm, Earth would never back down, never surrender. For the IDF had a new motto coined in the blood and fire of that first contact: "Where we go, we bring the light of humanity, and the light will never go out." As the Interstellar Defense Force grew in strength and influence, taking on an ever larger role in galactic affairs, an urgent distress call reached their headquarters. Major Christian Scott pored over the garbled transmission, his brow furrowed with concern. An unknown civilization, their desperate pleas emanating from an uncharted world at the edge of known space. Christian assembled his team, the best and brightest the IDF had to offer. Dr. Elena Ivanova, her xenoarchaeological expertise invaluable. Captain David Nakamura, Christian's steadfast second-in-command and closest friend. Together, they boarded a sleek vessel and set off into the void, determined to answer the call for aid. As they descended through the planet's atmosphere, the ruins of an ancient city stretched out beneath them. Towering spires of gleaming metal now dulled by the passage of eons. Vast courtyards and sprawling boulevards choked with the detritus of a civilization long dead. The team sat down in the heart of the ruins, their boots crunching on cracked pavement as they disembarked. Dr. Ivanova scanned the area, her eyes widening as her instruments picked up traces of advanced technology, far beyond anything they'd encountered. Christian led the way into the largest structure, a cavernous hall lined with flickering holographic displays. As they delved deeper, a sense of unease settled over the group. The air was thick with the stench of decay, an acrid tang that burned the back of the throat. In the central chamber, they found the source of the distress call. A single console, its surface covered in the desiccated remains of the aliens who had once inhabited this place. Dr. Ivanova approached, her gloved hands hovering over the controls. The hologram sprang to life, a ghostly figure taking shape before them. Its features were gaunt, ravaged by disease. It spoke in a rasping voice, the translation software struggling to keep up. The word sent a chill down Christian's spine, an engineered virus created by an unknown alien race as a means of conquest. And now, they were standing in the midst of it. "Everyone helmets on, full quarantine protocols," he barked, his heart pounding. But it was too late. Christian rushed to his friend's side, cradling his head. "Stay with me, David. We'll get you out of here." But as he looked around, he saw the same symptoms taking hold of the others. Dr. Ivanova, her eyes glassy with fever. The rest of the team, their bodies racked with convulsions. They raced back to the ship, Christian half carrying, half dragging Nakamura. In the medical bay, they worked frantically to stabilize the infected, to find some way to combat the virus. But it was like nothing they'd ever seen, highly adaptable, resistant to every treatment they tried. Christian made the call, his voice heavy with dread. "All infected ships initiate full quarantine. No one in or out until we get a handle on this thing." He watched the readouts, the infection spreading like wildfire through the fleet. His own ship was a ticking time bomb, the virus coursing through the veins of his crew. A message pinged on his console, the ID tagged as Nakamura. Christian's heart clenched as he opened it, steeling himself. "Chris, I don't have much time." Nakamura's voice was labored, each word an effort. "The virus, I think I found a way, a cure, but it needs the antibodies of the infected. All of us." Christian's grip tightened on the console, his eyes stinging. He knew what Nakamura was asking, the ultimate sacrifice, to give their lives so that others might live. With a heavy heart, he gave the order. The uninfected crew, those lucky few who had been spared, worked around the clock to synthesize the cure according to Nakamura's instructions. And one by one, the infected gave their lives to make it possible. Christian stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the stars. The weight of command had never felt so heavy, the losses so acute. The IDF had won the day, but at a terrible price. He thought of Nakamura, of Dr. Ivanova, of all the brave men and women who had given everything to keep humanity safe. Their sacrifices would not be forgotten. The IDF would carry on, forever changed by this crucible. They would adapt, they would persevere, they would make the hard choices, for that was the true strength of humanity, the indomitable spirit that had carried them to the stars and would keep them there, no matter the odds. Christian turned to his crew, his voice steady with resolve. "Set a course for home, we have work to do." In the years following the devastating viral outbreak, Admiral Christian Scott poured himself into rebuilding the IDF and strengthening humanity's position in the galaxy. He worked tirelessly, driven by a burning need to uncover the truth behind the virus that had claimed so many lives, including his dear friend Captain Nakamura. Late one night, hunched over a glowing console in his quarters, Christian stumbled upon a lead that set his heart racing. Encrypted data fragments pointed to a heavily guarded Zorgon research facility on the fringes of known space, hinting at a connection to the virus's origins. Christian knew he had to act fast. He assembled a crack team of IDF operatives, the best of the best. Among them was Dr. Zarthul, his old ally from the Lemnorian conflict. The defector's knowledge would be invaluable in infiltrating the Zorgon facility. As their sleek stealth ship sliced through the void, Christian briefed his team. "We go in quick and quiet, retrieve any data related to the virus, and get out before they know what hit them. Failure is not an option." The facility loomed before them, a sprawling complex bristling with advanced weaponry. Christian and his team slipped inside, their stealth tech rendering them invisible to the Zorgon security systems. They crept through dimly lit corridors, the hum of alien machinery filling the air. Dr. Zarthul led them deeper into the facility's heart, his knowledge of Zorgon systems guiding their every step. Suddenly alarms blared. "We've been detected," Christian barked, plasma rifle at the ready. "Push forward to the data core." Zorgon warriors swarmed the corridors, their energy weapons sizzling through the air. Christian and his team fought their way through, plasma bolts and laser fire scorching the walls around them. In the central data core, Dr. Zarthul's fingers flew over the alien console. "Almost there," he hissed, his face bathed in the glow of the screens. "Just need to bypass the final encryption." With a triumphant shout, he slammed his palm onto the console. Data streamed into their devices, petabytes of information flashing across the screens. As they pored over the stolen files, a chill settled over the team. The data pointed to a shadowy organization known as the Galactic Consortium, a cabal of powerful alien races manipulating events from the shadows for centuries. The virus, the conflicts, everything. "It's all been orchestrated by the Consortium," Christian growled, his fists clenched. "They've been playing us all like pawns." Dr. Zarthul nodded grimly. "And now that humanity is rising in power, we've become a threat to their control. They'll stop at nothing to keep their secrets hidden." Christian's jaw set with determination. "Then we take the fight to them. We expose their machinations and bring the Consortium to justice, for the lives they've destroyed, for the future they've tried to steal from us." As the team made their escape, Zorgon ships hot on their heels, Christian knew this was only the beginning. The Consortium's agents would be hunting them now, desperate to bury the truth. But Admiral Christian Scott had faced impossible odds before. With his team by his side and the might of the IDF at his back, he would not rest until the Consortium was brought to light and held accountable for their crimes against the galaxy. The chase was on, a deadly game of cat and mouse that would span the stars. Christian and his team raced from system to system, always one step ahead of the Consortium's agents. They gathered allies and evidence along the way, slowly piecing together the true scope of the Consortium's influence. But the Consortium fought back with all the resources at their disposal. Assassins, mercenaries, and even entire fleets were dispatched to silence Christian and his team. Each encounter was a desperate battle, the IDF operatives pushing themselves to their limits to survive. Despite the odds, Christian refused to back down. He knew that the fate of not just humanity, but the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The Consortium's grip on power had to be broken, no matter the cost. In a final desperate gambit, Christian rallied the IDF for an all-out assault on the Consortium's headquarters. Hidden deep within a sprawling nebula, the heavily fortified space station served as the nerve center of the Consortium's operations. The battle was joined, the might of the IDF clashing with the Consortium's formidable defenses. Ships exploded in dazzling fireballs, filling the void with debris and the screams of dying crews. Christian led the charge, his flagship spearheading the assault. By his side stood Dr. Zarthul, the Lemnorian's expertise proving invaluable in breaching the station's defenses. As they fought their way deeper into the station, the casualties mounted. Friends and comrades fell, their lives given in service to the greater cause, but Christian pushed forward, his resolve unbreakable. In the heart of the station, they confronted the Overseer, the enigmatic leader of the Consortium. A figure cloaked in shadows, the Overseer's face was hidden behind an ornate mask. "So you have fought well, Admiral Scott," the Overseer intoned, his voice a distorted whisper. "But you cannot hope to defeat the Consortium. We are the guardians of order, the architects of stability. Without us, the galaxy would descend into chaos." Christian stepped forward, his plasma rifle trained on the Overseer. "You call this stability? Unleashing plagues, fermenting wars, manipulating entire civilizations? No, you're not guardians. You're tyrants, and your reign ends now." The Overseer laughed, a cold and hollow sound. "You think you can destroy us? We are eternal, woven into the very fabric of the galaxy. Strike me down, and 100 more will rise to take my place." Suddenly a blast of energy erupted from the Overseer's hand, enveloping Christian. He felt his life force draining away, his strength fading. But Dr. Zarthul leapt forward, throwing himself between Christian and the Overseer. The Lemnorian absorbed the brunt of the attack, his body convulsing with energy. "Christian," he gasped, his life ebbing away, "finish this for all of us." With a roar of fury and anguish, Christian surged forward, slamming into the Overseer with all his might. They grappled, the Overseer's mask shattering to reveal a withered, ancient face. "You cannot win," the Overseer hissed, his grip like iron. "The Consortium is the only way to maintain balance in the galaxy. Your species is too young, too volatile. You would bring ruin to us all." With a final, desperate effort, Christian wrenched free of the Overseer's grasp. He leveled his rifle, the barrel glowing with barely restrained plasma. "This is for every life you've destroyed, every dream you've shattered. The Consortium ends now." He pulled the trigger, and the world went white. When the smoke cleared, the Overseer was gone, reduced to ashes by the searing plasma. Around them, the station shuddered and quaked, its power core destabilizing. "All units evacuate now," Christian ordered over the comm, his voice ragged. "The station is going critical." As the IDF ships pulled away, the station exploded in a blinding flash, a miniature supernova blooming in the heart of the nebula. The Consortium's headquarters, the seat of their power, was no more. In the aftermath of the battle, Christian stood on the bridge of his flagship, gazing out at the stars. The weight of the lives lost, the sacrifices made, hung heavy on his shoulders. But amidst the grief there was also hope. The consortium had been shattered, their hold on the galaxy broken. A new era was dawning, one of cooperation and understanding between species. Christian thought of Dr. Zarthul, of Captain Nakamura, of all those who had given their lives in the struggle. Their sacrifices would not be in vain. He would carry on their legacy, leading humanity and their allies into a brighter future. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be new challenges, new threats to face. But Christian knew that as long as the IDF stood strong, as long as the bonds between races held true, they could face anything the galaxy threw at them. He turned to his crew, his eyes blazing with determination. "Set a course for Earth, we have work to do." Years later, Admiral Christian Scott stood on a platform overlooking the sprawling shipyards of Earth. Before him stretched a vast fleet of starships, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. But these were not just human vessels. Among them stood the graceful curves of Lemnorian cruisers, the angular lines of Zorgan battleships, and the sleek profiles of a dozen other races. This was the new IDF, a symbol of the alliance and cooperation that now spanned the galaxy. The sacrifices of the past had paved the way for this moment, for a future where the stars were not a battlefield, but a shared frontier. As Christian watched the ships lift off, soaring into the endless expanse of space, he felt a sense of pride and purpose. The IDF had a new mission now, not just to defend humanity, but to serve as a beacon of hope and unity for all races. There would be challenges ahead, conflicts to resolve and new frontiers to explore, but Christian, you have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.